Welcome to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled you're here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are talking directly to you, the learner. Maybe you're tuning in because you're prepping for your very first major airline technical interview. And well, the pressure is definitely on.
Oh, for sure. That panel is no joke.
Right. You know the systems, you've got the hours, but you really need to nail that panel. Or, maybe you are just insanely curious about the psychology of elite pilots and how they handle these crazy high-stakes situations.
Which is fascinating in its own right.
Exactly. Either way, you are in exactly the right place. Today, our mission is to open up the complex world of the Airbus ECAM interview procedure.
Yeah, the ECAM.
Which stands for Electronic Centralized Aircraft Monitoring, for those who might not know. And we are going straight into the essential A320 captain mentality, because sitting in front of that interview panel isn't just about knowing the mechanical schematics of the airplane.
Not at all. They know you can read a manual.
Right. This is entirely about proving you have the psychological discipline and the structural mindset to command that aircraft when literally everything goes wrong.
Yeah, that mentality shift is the entire point of the evaluation. When a technical panel asks a candidate to walk through the Airbus ECAM procedure, they're actively looking for a very specific mindset.
Right.
They absolutely do not want a robotic recitation of steps. I mean, yes, the ECAM is the central nervous system of the aircraft's diagnostics, but the panel isn't looking for a memorized list of buttons to push.
Think a monkey could do that.
Exactly. They want to see the candidate treat the ECAM as an executive management tool. What's fascinating here is that the panel is actually using this single technical question as a comprehensive, multi-layered stress test.
A stress test. I like that.
Yeah, they're evaluating structured decision-making, procedural discipline, situational awareness, and above all, command maturity.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the procedure is broken down into 6 very specific non-negotiable steps. And step 1 is all about detection.
The crucial first step.
The golden rule here, the absolute top priority that you have to emphasize to the interview panel right out of the gate is fly the aircraft.
Always aviate first.
It sounds incredibly simple on paper, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of this initial detection phase is highly structured to fight our basic human instinct.
It really is.
Because the moment that master warning chimes, the very first pilot to notice an anomaly doesn't just start flipping switches or diving into the screens. The procedure mandates that they reset the master caution or the master warning light just to stop the distraction.
Get rid of the noise.
Right. And then they clearly announce the exact title of the failure out loud. Meanwhile, the pilot flying the PF focuses strictly, 100%, on flying and navigating.
They don't even look down.
Nope. They do not look down to troubleshoot. They fly the pitch and power.
And emphasizing that specific division of labor is exactly how a candidate wins over the panel. Oh, absolutely. The interview strategy needs to be completely flawless here. The candidate has to paint a picture for the panel of immense discipline, particularly during the most critical phases of flight.
Like takeoff.
Right. Consider a scenario where a major failure occurs right at V1 during the takeoff roll.
Oh, man.
The instinct, the sheer human startle reflex, is to immediately address the loud bell and the flashing red lights. But to pass this interview, you have to tell the panel that in this scenario, absolutely no action is taken until the aircraft reaches a minimum of 400 feet AGL.
Above ground level.
Yes.
Right.
And a safe flight path is firmly established.
The psychological weight of that 400-foot rule is just massive to me.
Guarantee.
You're rocketing off a runway, an engine has just surged or caught fire, the entire flight deck is illuminated with warnings, the audio alarms are blaring, and the procedure dictates that you deliberately do nothing.
Nothing but fly.
You maintain runway heading, you pitch for your target speed, you get the gear up, and you just fly. You have to actively suppress the overwhelming urge to fix the problem immediately.
It requires an extraordinary amount of mental compartmentalization. Explaining the why behind this rule to the panel is where a candidate transitions from just a good pilot to a captain.
It shows restraint.
It proves the possession of ultimate restraint. It shows the interviewers that the candidate won't get sucked into a diagnostic tunnel while the plane is incredibly close to the ground, moving at high speed in a highly vulnerable kinetic state.
Because if you start flying the plane to look at a screen,
you crash, demonstrating the prioritization of fundamental aerodynamics over mechanical troubleshooting is the absolute hallmark of command maturity. The panel needs to know the candidate can manage their own adrenaline before they manage the aircraft systems.
That is a phenomenal image to project in an interview. You're basically telegraphing to the chief pilots across the table, I won't panic, I will fly the plane. So once that safe altitude is reached and the flight path is totally secure, the dynamic shifts. We move into step 2, which is ECAM actions.
Right, now we can start dealing with the problem.
The pilot flying formally commands ECAM actions and simultaneously assumes all ATC communications, which is a brilliant workload management strategy because it instantly frees up the pilot, not flying the PNF, to bring their entire cognitive focus to the ECAM screens.
And begin executing the required system inputs.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. You can't just blindly follow the cyan prompts on the screen. There is a massive safety mechanism built into this execution phase called the confirmation loop.
The confirmation loop is a critical talking point.
Tell us about it.
If the goal is to impress the interview panel, glossing over this is a fatal error. Both pilots are strictly required to cross-confirm any guarded or irreversible actions before the pilot not flying actually performs them.
They have to check with each other.
Yes, the panel is listening very closely to hear if the candidate respects the danger of an irreversible action.
Because an irreversible action fundamentally alters the state of the aircraft in a way that you cannot easily undo, which is literally the last thing you want to mess up during an existing emergency.
You don't want to make it worse.
Right. When walking the panel through this, it's vital to give them specific examples.
Yeah.
You have to mention moving a thrust lever, pushing a fire button, or pressing a master switch.
Those are the big ones.
These are actions that, if done to the wrong engine or the wrong system, take a manageable emergency and turn it into a catastrophe.
The aviation industry has learned that lesson the hard way too many times, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Imagine a scenario where the right engine has a severe fire warning.
Okay.
The adrenaline is still pumping. The pilot not flying reads the ECAM, reaches up to the overhead panel to push the fire button and isolate that engine. But in the heat of the moment, under intense stress, their hand is actually hovering over the fire button for the left engine.
The good engine.
The good engine.
Shutting down the only source of thrust while you are already heavy and low, that is the ultimate nightmare scenario.
Driven purely by the human tendency to rush when under threat.
Oh.
That is the exact human flaw. The confirmation loop is designed to engineer out of the cockpit. The pilot not flying physically places their hand on the button, but they do not push it, they wait.
A deliberate pause.
Yes. The pilot flying must pull their attention away from the instruments for a split second, look at the specific button, verify it is indeed the correct system for the correct engine, and verbally confirm it.
Only then is the action executed.
Exactly. By explicitly detailing this highly choreographed pause to the panel, the candidate proves they have stellar CRM skills.
Crew resource management.
Right. They are demonstrating a deep understanding of how to utilize the human resources in the cockpit to prevent the crew from accidentally compounding an emergency. It shows a fundamental respect for the fact that the ECAM is a collaborative tool, not a single pilot solo mission.
It really is a masterclass in human psychology and cockpit design. It forces a mandatory physical and verbal pause when every single neuron in your brain is just screaming at you to act instantly and put the fire out.
It saves lives.
So the irreversible actions are confirmed, executed, and the immediate mechanical danger is secured. The engine is isolated, the fire is out. Now the procedure moves into step 3, which is system displays.
Moving right along.
After the critical action items are done, the crew needs to review the affected system pages on the lower ECAM screen. And the panel is listening for a very specific, disciplined verbiage here, because it's easy for crews to get sloppy once the immediate threat is handled.
Oh, human nature again.
Yeah.
The discipline cannot drop just because the fire bell stopped ringing.
Right.
The panel wants to hear a choreographed, methodical routine. The pilot not flying doesn't just hit the clear button to declutter the screen.
They can't just swipe it away.
No, they must formally request to clear a system page. Then, the pilot flying must actually look at that display, analyze what it's telling them about the state of the hydraulics or the electrics, internalize that information, and then verbally command clear.
And only after that command is the page removed?
This exact, deliberate sequence repeats for every single affected system page.
It's essentially a verbal handshake for every piece of system data. I see the hydraulic pressure is gone. I analyze how that affects us. You may clear it.
Yes.
It prevents the PNF from accidentally erasing crucial secondary failure information before the PF has mentally registered it.
Exactly.
This meticulous clearing process continues until you finally arrive at step 4, which is reviewing the status page.
The status.
The PNF requests to read the status, the PF confirms, and now the entire nature of the emergency changes. They are looking at the long-term operational impact of whatever just broke. The immediate fire might be out, but the aircraft is now degraded.
And this is a major pivot point in the interview answer. The candidate needs to list exactly what they are checking on that status page to show they are looking ahead.
What are they looking for?
They must tell the panel they are meticulously reviewing any new flight envelope limitations, identifying any alternative procedures that now apply, and summarizing the inoperative systems. But crucially, the panel wants to hear the candidate emphasize that this is the exact moment the crew determines the approach speed increments, the VAPP, and the landing distance multipliers.
This is such a critical concept for the learner to grasp for the interview. You have to explain to the panel that losing a system on an A320 often fundamentally changes the aerodynamics and stopping capability of the aircraft.
Absolutely.
If you've lost certain hydraulic systems, you might not have full use of your flaps or slats. You might be flying in direct yaw. Your approach speed, your VAPP, is going to be significantly higher to maintain lift without those surfaces.
They're coming in hot.
Coming in fast. And a higher approach speed combined with potentially losing some spoilers or thrust reversers means your landing distance multipliers are going to skyrocket. The aircraft is going to eat up a massive amount of runway.
Yes. And by explaining this, the candidate is proving to the panel that they are no longer just surviving the moment. They are actively calculating what it will take to achieve a safe arrival with a heavily compromised machine. They are demonstrating the ability to project the current mechanical state of the aircraft 20 or 30 minutes into the future to the landing phase.
Looking ahead.
Exactly. Once all of these limitations, speeds, and multipliers are reviewed, calculated, and fully understood by both pilots, the pilot not flying formally announces ECAM actions completed.
A definitive statement.
That specific phrase closes the loop on the immediate technical and tactical handling of the failure.
So what does this all mean? When that phrase, ECAM actions completed, is spoken, it triggers a massive psychological shift on the flight deck. We're now moving into step 5, situation assessment and decision.
The big picture.
You have to convey to the panel that you are no longer just a mechanic fixing a broken part in the sky. You have officially transitioned into managing the macro-level flight operation. The tactical phase is over and the strategic phase begins.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the executive management aspect of the captain mentality truly shines.
Tell us more about that.
The interview panel wants to hear how the candidate builds a big picture strategy. The crew just figured out their new required landing distance from the status page calculations. Now, they have to evaluate that highly specific number against the actual available runways in their vicinity.
Because a 10,000-foot runway does you absolutely no good if you're in the middle of the North Atlantic.
Exactly.
Or if there's a massive violent thunderstorm sitting right over the approach path of that specific airport. You have to take the sterile data from the ECAM and smash it into the messy reality of the outside world.
That collision between data and reality is where true command decision-making happens. The candidate must explain that they are assessing the current and forecast weather at all potential diversion airports.
Checking the weather.
Right. They're evaluating the NOTAMs for runway closures or instrument landing system outages. Furthermore, they have to weigh the operational and commercial considerations.
Like what?
Does the alternate airport have maintenance facilities for an A320? Can the local ground crew handle deplaning a full load of passengers, or will they be stuck on the tarmac for 10 hours?
Oh, right. The passengers.
This highly structured, multivariable decision-making process determines the ultimate question. Does the flight safely continue to its original destination, or do they divert to an alternate airport?
It's a huge call.
By articulating this complex web of variables to the panel, the candidate shows they aren't just a pilot. They're an aviation manager.
You are the CEO of that specific flight, balancing safety as the ultimate priority against the logistical realities of the airline network.
Spot on.
That brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, step 6. Synthesis. The heavy lifting of the decision is done. You've decided you are diverting to a specific alternate airport. Now it is time to bring the entire operation together, synthesize the plan, and resume standard flight management.
Bringing it all home.
This step is entirely about communication, teamwork, and getting the administrative house back in order.
The panel will want to hear the specific final tasks executed here to ensure no loose ends are left behind.
What's on that list?
The candidate must recount that they will now execute any normal checklists that were delayed or interrupted by the emergency. They must evaluate any computer resets that might be applicable to restore lost systems.
Give it a reboot.
Exactly. They also need to check for operations engineering bulletins, the OEBs, which are specific, vital technical directives from Airbus that might apply to the specific failure they just experienced.
It's really about transitioning the aircraft from an active emergency state into a controlled, abnormal operational state. You are cleaning up the cockpit environment so you can focus on the approach.
Once the administrative cleanup is done, the crew must prepare the approach for the chosen diversion airport, inputting the new data into the flight management system.
Setting up the computers.
Right. Then they conduct a thorough, modified approach briefing, ensuring both pilots understand exactly how the compromised aircraft will handle during the descent and landing.
Since it's flying differently now.
Exactly. Finally, the candidate must detail the execution of the communication plan. They notify ATC of their intentions and any emergency services required on the ground.
Getting the fire trucks ready.
They contact company operations so the airline can prepare for a diverted aircraft and stranded passengers. And, crucially, they inform the purser and the passengers of the final decision, bringing the entire crew and cabin into the loop and managing the human element of the crisis.
It is an incredibly thorough, airtight process. So for you, the learner, as you visualize walking into that technical interview panel, here is the absolute bottom line you need to project.
The main takeaway.
The overarching theme is that the Airbus ECAM sequence is never just a blind checklist. You don't just stare at a screen and push buttons until the red lights turn off. It is a highly structured, psychologically brilliant framework designed to manage both the machine and the human beings flying it.
It is a framework built entirely on a very specific foundational aviation philosophy, a philosophy the candidate must demonstrate they have fully internalized. Aviate, then navigate, and finally communicate.
Aviate, navigate, communicate.
You fly the plane first, doing absolutely nothing below 400 feet AGL to protect the flight path. Then you navigate and manage the systems with strict collaborative discipline, utilizing the confirmation loop to protect against human error.
Right.
And finally, only once the big picture strategic decision is made, do you communicate. The entire six-step architecture is designed to keep the flight deck collaborative, undeniably safe, and entirely under the captain's deliberate command.
It's about proving to those chief pilots across the table that you possess the mental discipline to filter out the noise, prioritize the actual threats, suppress your own startle reflex, and lead a crew through a complex crisis with calm authority.
A true leader?
The amount of deep psychology baked into these standard operating procedures is truly remarkable when you look closely at the why behind the what.
The design of the procedure acknowledges that human beings are inherently flawed, especially under stress, and it builds structural guardrails to mitigate those flaws.
It really does.
And this raises an important question, something for you to think about long after this deep dive ends.
I love these.
We've spent all this time analyzing how the six-step ECAM procedure is meticulously designed to force calm, structured decision-making during high-stakes, literal life-and-death emergencies at 30,000 feet. But look closely at the core principles at play here.
Okay.
Forcing a mandatory pause before reacting to a loud alarm. Prioritizing the single most critical task, flying the plane above all the distracting flashing lights. Utilizing a strict confirmation loop before making an irreversible decision. Shifting from tactical reactions to strategic macro-level planning.
It's universal.
How could applying this exact ECAM mentality change the way you manage unexpected crises, sudden failures, or overwhelming moments in your own daily life and career? It's a profoundly powerful framework for executive management, whether you are sitting in an A320 cockpit or managing a crisis in a boardroom.
That is such a brilliant practical takeaway.
Yeah.
Taking that deeply ingrained A320 captain mentality and applying it to a stressful corporate meeting, a sudden project failure, or just a chaotic Tuesday morning when everything seems to be going wrong at once.
Fly the plane.
Stop, fly the plane, secure the immediate threat, assess the long-term status, and then make a macro-level strategic decision. Don't push the fire button on the wrong engine just because you feel the need to do something quickly. I absolutely love that perspective.
It changes everything.
Well, to you, the learner, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration gives you exactly the structural insight and psychological edge you need, whether you are walking into that technical interview panel tomorrow morning or you are just looking to understand the incredible disciplined mindset required behind the flight deck door.
Good luck out there.
Keep asking questions, keep exploring the why behind the procedures, and keep learning. We'll catch you next time.